So, hello everyone. Welcome to the American Job Center's virtual career series, Interviewing Skills, and this is our second one. The third one will be next month. With so much flux and uncertainty in the job market, the library is partnering with the Southwest Suburban Cook County American Job Center in order to offer the Orland Park Community virtual access to experts that can help you with your job searching. This series will help prepare you to apply and interview remotely, as well as how to explore a career change as the job market is undergoing these dramatic shifts. So, without further ado, the American Job Center.
Thank you so much, Duke. Hello, everybody. My name is Hugo Avila. I am the coordinator of business services here for the Southwest Suburban Cook County American Job Center. We are funded by the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership. My company, Circle, is a community-based organization. So I'm so glad that we have the opportunity to be able to come to you today through the Orland Park Library. So thank you so much for that. Uh, as part of the community, since we are part of the community, we like to be able to offer our services to all aspects of the community. We, our physical office is located in North Riverside, but we are here to service all of Cook County. Because of everything that's happened with the current pandemic, we had to pivot. So we are offering a lot more of our workshops online. We are doing a series with Orland Park. Last month we did have a resume workshop today where our topic is going to be interviews. And then next month's topic is going to be in regards to job search and applications. If you'd like to know a little bit more about us, give us a call, 708-222-3100. You can also email us at frontdeskajc@il.sercohq.com. We do leverage federal grants to be able to provide what's called intensive services. So if you are somebody who's currently looking for work, or if you know somebody that's currently looking for work, definitely reach out to us because we can help you with more one-on-one support. So not only do we provide these workshops, but we're also able to work with you on a more one-on-one basis in regards to personally giving you job leads, opportunities, reviewing your resume, giving you interview prep, mock interviewing, those kind of services. In addition to that, we do leverage those same federal grants to be able to help pay for people to go back to school. So we are able to pay for individuals to go back to school to obtain license or certification programs to either make you more marketable in the type of work you're looking for, or maybe you're looking to make a career change and that license or certification can be what gets your foot in the door. If that's the case, give us a call too. We're more happy to talk to you a little bit more about how we can be able to provide those services for you. Duke, in front of you, you should see interview and bootcamp. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Fantastic. So once again, here's our contact information. Now, at the end of the presentation today, we're going to be providing you a link, which will not only include the recording of the presentation now, but also more in-depth recording. So there's a lot of material that isn't going to get covered today because of time, because we want to allow enough time for a question and answer segment. But we are going to provide you a link so you can see the full presentation with additional video support. And part of that support is going to be referencing some of the topics I'll be going over today, but also giving you an opportunity where we actually include a little bit of a mock interview video that you can pause and rewind and kind of, because practice is going to make perfect. Now, in order to be able to also allow you to get the most out of today's presentation, you'll want to go to front desk AJC. You can email us at frontdeskajc@il.sercohq.com, but you'll want to go to tinyurl.com/circle docs, and I'll include that in the chat box as well as a link. When you go there, you'll be taken to a Google Share Drive that we compiled, where you'll be able to see different resources such as interview preps, how to negotiate pay, follow-up, thank you letters, so you can be able to get the most out of the interview experience. At the end of the presentation today, I'll bring that up for you, and you'll be able to see what I'm referring to. But tinyurl.com/circle docs is a website you definitely want to make sure you go to so you can access those resources. So let's get to it. So what is a job interview? So in reality, job interview is really a sales pitch, and the product you're selling is yourself. These sales pitches can last anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes. So you always, whenever you're scheduling a job interview, you always want to schedule that time. So what I mean by that means if you are doing errands or planning appointments and things like that, allow yourself enough time to be able to, one, go to the interview you're going to go to, and that you are planning to be at that interview anywhere from 30 minutes to 45 minutes. And to be safe, I would tell you even go in there, give yourself an hour where you're not expecting to plan anything, and you want to spread out any other appointments. So if you are doing multiple interviews with multiple employers in a particular day, you want to make sure you give yourself enough time, because I can tell you that showing up late to your interview is not a good sign. And so you always want to make sure you show up on time. Now, showing up too early can be just as bad as showing up late. A rule of thumb is you generally want to arrive at your interview 15 minutes beforehand. And the reason that is because say your interview is at 10 a.m. and you show up at 9:30. When you arrive, you're going to be announced that you're there and you're waiting to be seen. That person you're going to interview with is going to be informed, and they're going to feel a little bit rushed to try to finish off whatever they're finishing off to be able to attend you, because they don't want you to just sit there. And so that rushing and anxiety is going to be something that they're going to carry into the interview, into the actual interview with you, and that feelings of anxiety may actually bounce off and be reflected upon you, and you don't want that. You want to be able to come in there and have a smooth transition, easygoing, everybody's happy, positive energy, those kind of things. And so 15 minutes is a rule of thumb. That gives you enough time to be able to walk in there, and if they need you to fill out an additional application, you can start that process of filling that out if you haven't done so already. But you want to make sure you fill out applications ahead of time. Obviously, before you walk into an interview, you want to make sure you did your research. You want to make sure that the organization you're submitting your application for, and I talked this a little bit when we were talking about resumes in regards to reading the job description and submitting your application. But of course, you want to make sure that you're applying for jobs that you are a fit for, and of course, places you want to work at. And thus, you want to make sure you do your research in regards to picking and choosing and knowing that you're not necessarily wasting their time or your time walking into a place that you know is not going to be a good fit. Duke, if there's any questions that come over through the chat, just feel free to interrupt me, and I'm more happy to answer those as will pop up.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. So there's a couple of different types of interviews. Obviously, nowadays with COVID being so prevalent, people have really pivoted back from the face-to-face and are doing more intakes via phone interviews. In the full presentation I referenced just a little bit ago, you'll be able to actually see a nice video that talks about phone interviews. But in reality, you want to treat phone interviews just like face-to-face interviews. And what do I mean by that? Is one, I recommend individuals for phone interviews to dress up for their interview. Even if the person is not able to see you, you want to dress up, because when you dress up for your interview, that is a little switch in the back of your head that goes off that says, okay, it's time for me to be professional. It's time for me to get focused and make sure that I get my point across to this individual I'm going to speak with in regards to my abilities to perform the work at hand. And so putting on the suit, the tie, even though they can't see you, helps flip that switch. So when you're speaking with individual, that tone, that confidence, because you're wearing your clothes, the right clothes, that, you know, they say that clothes make the man. Because you're wearing the clothes, that's going to come off across your voice. And in the phone interview, so much of their opinion or assumption of you is based on your tone and the way you're speaking. Other things that can really help you in a phone interview is posture. You want to make sure you're sitting up straight, because when you're sitting up straight, that's going to open up your diaphragm. And when your diaphragm is extended, it allows you to project better. Your voice is clearer. There's less likely where you may have an issue that they cannot understand you or that you have to repeat yourself. And so you're more likely to continue in your conversation and thus get your point across without any interruptions or issues. The other thing too, especially in a phone interview, you get to choose the location and place of where you're going to take that call. So you want to make sure you choose a place that's quiet, that there's no distractions. So you want to make sure the TV's off, that whoever's in your household is well aware that you're going to be doing this phone interview and they should not bother you during this period of time. You should make sure you silence any phones or things of that sort. But the other thing too is you want to take advantage of your area. And so if I know I'm going to take a call, I want to make sure I'm in a comfortable chair. I'm sitting up straight, as I just mentioned a second ago. But I'm in front of me, I have a table where I can lay out my resume, I can lay out the job description, and I have something to write with, so I can take notes. Because generally speaking, when you do a phone interview, a lot of times that's a screening interview. And so the employer is screening to see if you may be a possible candidate for consideration. And what I mean by that is that anyone can put a resume together and they can say a lot of nice things, and there's a lot of services and places that will charge you to make an extravagant resume that speaks to everything that you could possibly do, and some of it may be stretching the truth a little bit, but just because it's on your resume, it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. And so normally what happens is the employer sees your resume, they skimmed over it, but they saw something they liked. And because they saw that something they liked, they read it. And because they read it, they said, oh, I can picture what you're referring to. I see your skills and abilities. I think there may be some synergy between you and us here at this company. So I want to talk to you. I want to make sure that what I saw on paper is really who you are. And if it is, then I feel confident I can take your information up to my superior, my boss, and make a case for us to be able to bring you on board, or if not, at least be able to talk to you face to face. So phone interviews tend to be screeners to screen out possible, robot-made resumes, as they say, and make sure that you're the actual person. But they're as important as any other interview, because this could be your first step to be able to start on the process to get your foot in the door somewhere. And so you want to make sure you're always truthful on your resume, and of course when you're speaking to them, you want to make sure you're smiling. Once again, this goes to that they can't see you, but they can hear you. And so when you smile, it softens your voice. You don't want to be yelling at the person you're speaking with. Don't get wigged out. Something that can help you really prepare, something that can help you get rid of some of the stress is by preparing. So doing your research ahead of time, going over scenarios and questions you maybe get asked, having the job description in front of you, and then highlighting certain things of that job description that you feel that might come up in conversation, and having your responses ready. So you want to prepare. Now, these same topics and tips are also very useful when it comes to a phone, not just a phone interview, but a video interview. So if I'm dressing up and I'm sitting up straight and I have my eye contact, and when you sit up straight, you want to make sure your feet are firmly on the ground and that your feet are pointed at the point of direction. And so what does that mean? That means that you either, if you're on a phone, you want to imagine that the person you're speaking to is in front of you, and so you're facing either that wall or a picture, and that helps individuals a lot of times when they're having that phone interview. If you're doing a video interview, then obviously you want to be focused on the webcam or the computer, and your feet want to be firmly on the ground pointing that, because where your feet go is where your body goes. And if you are pointing away from the point of attention, then the rest of your body's going to want to follow. And when it starts following, you start slouching. And when you start slouching, you start getting comfortable. And when you start getting comfortable, you may forget that you're in a professional setting where you should be professional, and you should come across professional, and thus you change your demeanor. Because let's be honest, the way we act at work or with our supervisors is not necessarily the way we interact with our friends and families on the weekend at a party, where we are comfortable and we feel loose and we feel free, and we may have a slip of a tongue, as they say. So you want to keep it professional, and so posture, firmness, sitting up straight allows you to project and invokes confidence, and those things come across whether it's on the phone and they can't see you, or if it's a video and they can't see you. So one of the most things in regards to a resume, in regards to your interview, is once you get the opportunity to interview, what happened there is that you submitted your resume. As I said, that employer saw something they liked, and they want to talk to you because they want to see if what's on paper is true. So when you get the opportunity to actually speak with somebody, this is not the time to be humble. This is where you want to let that employer know all the great things about you, all the experience you have, the education, your accomplishments, your awards, how, that you're the one that was able to bring in those sales, you build up the department, you are a go-getter, your previous boss is more than happy to write you a letter of accommodations, whatever the case may be. When you have the opportunity to actually speak with somebody, that's when you really want to shine. Because especially nowadays, so much of what we do is online, and so much of what you do online is so disconnected, right? If you think of the process of you submitting an application, it goes through an online application tracking system, which we talked a little bit about in the last presentation. That application tracking system makes a determination whether to qualify or you don't qualify, and then moves your process along, and then you get into a pile, then you become a number in a pile of possible candidates, and so on and so forth. That whole process is very disconnecting, and so you lose a little bit of something, right? You lose that personal touch. But you finally got the opportunity to speak with somebody, and that's where you have the chance to shine. And so when you're given that opportunity, don't be humble. That's where you want to come out of the gate saying all the good stuff about you. Now, don't get caught by being unprepared. So once again, you want to make sure you're looking at that job description, highlighting certain things from that job description that you want to make sure you reference is a great way to kind of keep yourself on pace. And then the other is you want to be aware of what your strengths and your weaknesses are in regards to the job you're applying for. Because guess what? They're most likely going to ask you about your weaknesses because they already see what your strengths are. Because let's be honest, that's what we're putting on our resume, right? I'm putting on my resume how I have this degree or how I managed this or how I did that. But I'm not necessarily putting on there how, you know, I lost sales in the past 3 quarters, or I had to close down my department because we didn't make profit. Those aren't the things I'm putting on my resume, but that may be what they ask me about because they're going to ask me about why aren't you in your last job? Why were you only there for a year? So you want to have prepared answers. One of the things we provide for you in the supportive documents, which I included the link in the chat, is questions, common questions that interviewers ask you, and then we've provided you some prepared answer statements. But most importantly, we provided you questions you should ask an employer because the interview process is a two-way conversation. Not only is it an opportunity for the employer to find out about you and see if you're a good fit, but once again, it's an opportunity for you to speak with somebody because the computer, you know, you can ask the computer a lot of questions and Alexa's great, but there's only so much that interaction can do until you get to a person to see if this is a good fit for you. Any questions so far? Now, one of the important things about being humble is, as I mentioned, you want to talk about your accomplishments and the things that you did that allowed you to be successful in the work you've been doing in the career you're in. But you want to avoid using standard terms. Like you don't want to say things like, I'm a hard worker, I'm a team player, I show up on time. Because guess what? The assumption is everyone's a hard worker, everyone can work in a team, and everybody can show up on time. So those are not things that are going to allow you to stand out. So when you speak to an employer and you're telling them how you're a great fit for this role, make sure you're being specific to them about the job and duties and responsibilities and how you're a fit to that. Don't use the general terms because I can tell you it does nothing for you. You have 30 to 45 minutes to wow that employer, and using things like I can show up on time is not helping your case. The assumption is, of course you can. You don't need to say that. And if you need to say that, maybe you can't. Now, you want to listen carefully and put up your radar. During the interview process, the employer is going to ask you questions. Generally, these questions are open-ended, meaning they're questions that cannot be answered with simple yes or no's. Like a very common interview question is, tell me about yourself. You can't say yes to that or no to that. I mean, you could, but it doesn't make any sense. What do they want to know? They want to know about you, but specifically they want to know how you're a fit for the job. They don't want to know about your life history, what your hobbies are, what you like to do on your off time. That's not what they're asking. They're asking, how are you a fit for the job? How are you specifically a candidate for this role compared to all the other applicants that submitted? And that's an important thing to understand, that when you interview for a job, the likelihood that you're the only person interviewing for that job is slim to none, because nowadays it's a very competitive job market. With everything going on, good jobs are hard to find, and good companies are, people don't usually leave good companies. And so when an opportunity comes available and it meets your criteria and it's exactly what you're looking for, then you need to shine and you need to stand up and make sure you have full, thoughtful responses to the questions you ask. As I mentioned, we do provide you a list of questions, most common questions and responses, and we even provide you kind of a do's and don'ts on those responses, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. So make sure interviews are won and lost in a matter of minutes, because you're not paying attention to the things they're asking you. So when an employer asks you a question, you don't want to dismiss an employer's questions. You want to provide a response. Now, we do provide you some additional support in regards to protecting yourself. Like there's certain questions employers shouldn't ask you. Common questions like that may lead to possible discrimination. So any questions in regards to your race, your religion, those kind of things, those are questions employers should not be asking you. And if they do ask you that question, there's always a point in our lives where we need to draw the line in the sand. And we can say to the employer, you know what, I don't feel comfortable asking that. Can I ask you why you asked that? Or you can say, can you ask me something else? Now that may put off the employer, but let's be honest. If that's the environment that the employer is in, is that really the environment you want to be working at if they're already coming after you? But what I'm referring to is questions that relate to the actual job. So you don't want to dismiss any concerns an employer has. Something may be as simple as, I see that you stay 20 miles away. Is that an issue? Or how would that affect you during the wintertime? Saying it won't affect me doesn't really provide them an answer. Saying, oh, I'm used to traveling more than miles. In my previous job, I used to go back and forth all the time, and it was never an issue. So I definitely feel confident in regards to this round. You want to always answer the questions that are being provided to you, and when you answer those questions, you always want to provide examples. And the best kind of examples you can provide are examples where you're referencing your previous work history, because you're pretty much saying, I did it before, and I can do it now. Now, in the full presentation, we actually have a whole mock interview video, and I definitely recommend taking advantage of that, looking at that when you have the opportunity to really allow you to get the most out of today's workshop. Now, you want to make sure you articulate yourself. So we do provide you a lot of great resources in regards to prepping for interviews, things you should say, how to research a company, do's and don'ts. One of the biggest don'ts is a rule of thumb when it comes to interviewing is you don't want to start talking about pay or benefits on your first interview. The reason for that is because, as I mentioned a little earlier, the first interview is really just a screener. Are you a viable candidate? Can I shoot you up to my supervisor for you to talk to them? And so we haven't even made a decision if we want to offer you a job, but you already are asking about pay, compensation, days off. That doesn't put you in the best light. There's going to be a point in the interview process, and that's a very important term right there, process. This is a process. We're in it together, and so you need to come along with me. I understand these are important topics for you, but there's going to be a point where these will be addressed. Now, a rule of thumb is if by the second interview where you got the face-to-face, so if my first interview was a phone and my second interview was a face-to-face, then I most likely have a third interview, and that third interview is where if they don't address compensation pay, then I can bring it up. But generally, most employers are aware of what the compensation is. They'll highlight it. Something that can give you kind of a heads up if compensation may be an issue is if they ask you about compensation right away. So that means that they either know that they're not paying the market rate, or they know that they have had issues trying to find the right person, but the pay is not there. And that may be for a couple of reasons. It may be just they're not able to afford the person they're looking for, and so they're trying to see what they can do with what they have, right? Budgets come into play there. But if they ask you about pay right away, you need to make sure you know what you're willing to take. I can tell you part of my job involves me assisting and working with individuals and looking for employment. And I talk to individuals all the time, and they always say that they're open. Oh, I'm open for anything. I'm open. But when I present them with something, they say, oh, no, I can't do that because of X, Y, and Z. So you want to be honest with yourself. So we do provide you a negotiation sheet, which allows you to put down on paper what your obligation expenses are, and you can see what they are and what that adds up to, and that gives you an idea of what you should be making. In the resume workshop, I talked about using the website like ONET Online to get labor market information. So if you take the labor market information, which will allow you to know what companies are actually paying, or what's the going rate for this particular job, and then you look at your actual obligations and you see, do those things match? If they don't, do I need to cut back on my obligations? Or do I need to start looking at a different kind of job because the job I qualify for is not going to pay me what I need to make? So either I cut back to meet, or I need to move something else. And that's going to allow you to have a better sense. So once you know what that is, then you can walk in there and then give them a number, because at some point you're going to be required to give them a number. And as long as you're happy with the number, don't feel like you lost out on an opportunity, because if you give them a number and then in the back of your head you're saying, oh, they could offer me more, then you're always going to be left with that possibility. There's always a point in your life you need to draw a line in the sand, but in order for you to understand what that line should be, is you want to make sure you do your research. Most companies nowadays are doing more with less. And so you need to understand that there is a shift happening right now in the job market. And so pay may not be where it used to be, or it may be difficult for you to get the pay you used to get. And where the way things are, I would honestly recommend most individuals to be open to the possibility of maybe taking a little bit step back on their compensation in order to get their foot in somewhere and be able to grow back up with a company. And I understand that for a lot of people, that doesn't sound that pleasing to the ear. What do you mean? I've been working and I finally reached this level, and now you want me to take a step back in order to kind of move back up again? Unfortunately, yes, because that's really what it is. That's the job market we're in right now. It's a very competitive job market. Good jobs, as I said, are really hard to find, and most people are keeping the jobs they are because it's a very volatile time with everything going on. And so, if you are somebody who's currently looking for work, I would honestly tell you, take a look at that negotiation worksheet that we provided for you and see if maybe there's not a possibility where you can cut back on your expenses in order to make it work with less pay, so at least to be able to get your foot in the door somewhere. Because I'll be honest, it's a lot easier to move around in an organization once you're in, compared to trying to get in and then start asking about how we can accommodate you. Because in reality, as an employer, I'm looking for you to accommodate me. And that's just the mentality that it is. Now, you want to make sure you acknowledge your weaknesses. It's okay to have weaknesses, but it's not okay to be okay with them. And what I mean by that, it's okay if you have faults, or if there's areas in your personality or your skills or abilities that you need to work on. That's fine, but you need to make sure you're working on them and improving on them, right? So you have strengths and you have weaknesses. Your strengths is obviously what you put in front. Your weaknesses is what you're looking to work on to bring to the front. And so whenever you're having a conversation, and understand, once again, as I mentioned earlier, in that interview, that job description is really your cheat sheet, because that's what the employer is most likely going to ask you about, is what's on that piece of paper. And so if you take the time to read that job description and identify the things that you may have weaknesses in that are in the job description as requirements, and you took the time to prepare statements for rebuttals in regards to the questions that you may possibly be asked, then that puts you on much firmer foot. It's okay to say, I'm not too familiar with Microsoft Excel, but I am learning more about it. I'm doing an online self-teach course to kind of get going, but I have been very successful. In my last job, I was in charge of whatever the case may be. But you see, what I did there is I acknowledged the weakness. I spoke to how I'm improving it, because it's not okay to stay ignorant. I understand I don't know this, or this is a flaw that I have, and it's not okay to say it, because I want to be somebody who self-improves and is constantly learning and growing, because that's who employers want to bring on board. And then I took the question and I referenced it, but let me bring you back to a strength. Any questions so far? Now, as I mentioned, the interview is a two-sided conversation. Not only is it an opportunity for the employer to see if you are a good fit for the role, but it's also an opportunity for you to see if this is the right job for you. So you want to make sure you're asking questions. Questions you should always ask in an interview are clarification questions. What do I mean by that? You read the job description, and that job description said that some travel is required, that you would need to have open flexibility, might be required to work late hours. What does that mean? How much travel? What flexibility are you looking for? How late are we talking about? These may be things you want to know the answers to. You need clarification on those. So clarification questions are always questions you should ask. Now, you should do as much research as possible. So for example, if you're reading a job description, and this happens sometimes, especially in specific industries where they are very focused on acronyms. Like I can tell you, for example, we're a government-funded agency, and the government loves to throw around acronyms. We use acronyms like NEG, WIOA, TAA. We have all these initials of things that stand for other things that are, and so on and so forth. And so if you're not from the industry, you may not know what all these things mean. Now, a simple Google search can really help you answer a lot of these questions. But once again, if in the conversation that you're having with the employer, they say something to you like RFP, and you're not sure what that means, it's okay to say, what do you mean by RFP? And then have them explain that to you, because you don't want to walk away thinking that you understood what the conversation was about, and it turns out you missed half of it because you didn't understand what they were referring to, or when they said RFPs, which stands for requisition for proposals in the government speak. And so clarification questions are always questions you should ask. Now, if you don't have any clarification questions, we did provide for you a list of questions you should ask. Questions I always recommend people to ask is, can you describe to me the day-to-day? Now, that's very different than asking what are the duties and responsibilities, because the job description told you that, and the assumption is you read the job description, and that's why you apply for the job. So you're not looking for me to tell you what your job is. You're looking for more details in regards to how the interaction with other staff may be, or do we have meetings in the morning before we kick off the day, or do we like to kind of wrap up in the end of the evening? These are things that may not be in the job description, but it's something I can tell you. What was the day-to-day look like? Well, normally we like to get together in the morning, touch base in regards to where we are in the project, and then from there we break off into our teams. You do your work, whatever that may be, as a project manager, and then at the end of the day we like to do a recap. That's a very different conversation than what is the job, or what are the duties of that job. Another question I really recommend individuals to ask is, what made the previous person so successful? Now, this question is really great because what it does, it gets the employer talking about everything they liked about the previous person, and then they're already telling you, these are the things I like. And they're already putting it out in the air for you to just reach out and grab and say, oh, I know what you mean. I have also done this, or I'm very familiar with that particular system. Oh yes, I in my previous job, I was in charge of that as well. And so it allows you to kind of turn the table. The employer now starts kind of giving you all the answers, and your job is just to kind of match the dots and say, oh, that's me. And of course, provide them examples of how that is you. Now, after the interview is all said and done, and you'll know the interview is coming to an end because they'll say to you, do you have any other questions? And if you don't have anything you need to get clarified, and you've asked the questions you wanted to ask, then you can simply say, you can say no, but you want to follow that up with a closing statement. Now, in the supportive documents, we actually included 10 different closing statements for you. Now, you want to think about a closing statement like this. One of the first things I said is that an interview is really a sales opportunity, and the product you're selling is yourself. Think about this scenario. If I was to walk into a car dealership, that salesperson is going to come up to me, they're going to greet me, they're going to introduce themselves to me, they're going to shake my hand, and then they're going to start asking me open-ended questions, which are in sales are known as probing questions. And they're going to want to know, oh, what brings you in today? That's an open-ended question. I can't say yes or no to that. I'm going to say, oh, I'm just looking, right? Because that's our immediate reaction when we understand we're being sold to. And it's like, oh, that's no problem. What do you drive right now? I can't say yes on that either. Oh, I have this particular vehicle. Oh, great, great. You like it? There's now they're starting to dive in. Yes or no? Okay, yes, I do. I like it. Okay, what do you like about it? Once again, open-ended, because the open-ended questions are the kind of questions that are going to give you the most detail, the most about. So they're going to ask you open-ended questions, and you want to ask them open-ended questions. But as you start getting the details you need and the information you need, you start bringing that down to the closing questions, which are yes or no's. I say, great. So you have family? Yes. Okay, great. Here's my conversation. Well, what do you think about this? And after a little bit of back and forth and a little bit of conversation, he finds out that I have a family, I need a bigger vehicle, I am looking to do more traveling, more road trips, and then finally he can make some recommendations like, oh, I think fantastic. I think this is the car for you. Would it make sense if he says to me or she says to me, here's my business card, let me know when you're ready, and then walks away? No, that person just spent an hour of their life finding out about me for the purpose of being able to sell me a vehicle, and we identified what kind of vehicle would be best for me based on my responses to his questions or her questions, and for that person to be, here's my business card, give me a call when you're ready. No, but guess what? That's what a lot of us do in an interview. We walk in there, we sell ourselves, we're the product we're selling, we tell them how great we are and how they should buy us in regards to offering us a job, and then we say, oh, thank you so much, and we walk away. You want to make sure you have the closing statement. What would a salesperson say to me? You know what? Let me talk to my manager and see what kind of deal I can get you. Or let me get your ID and I can check to see what kind of financing I can get you. Here you go. Do you need to talk to somebody, or here's the paperwork. Let's get things going. Because they're looking for you to say no. And then if you say no, then they're going to see it as an objection, and they're going to come up with a solution. That's the sales process. Well, guess what? The interviewing is a sales process too. When they ask you, do you have any more questions? If you have clarification questions, you ask them. You ask the questions you need to ask. If you don't, you're ready to close out. It's like, no, I think you answered anything for me. Is there anything that's preventing you from offering me the job today? Or, no, I think you answered all my questions. What's the next step? And I like that one a lot too, that what's the next step? Because that kind of gives you an idea of what you should expect. Generally, the response is going to be something along the lines, oh, I still have more interviews to do. I'm going to be wrapping up on interviews, right? That's the general, open-ended. Then you get clarification. When do you expect to be done with your interviews, right? You're bringing it back down because you're trying to get to the pinpoint. It's like, oh, probably by the end of the week. Fantastic. And always ask for a business card. Now, the reason you want to always ask for a business card is because you want to be able to get the contact information of the person you interview with. So you can do follow-up. So you can send them a thank you letter or thank you email. And then, of course, you want to follow up and see where you are in the process. And because you asked that kind of question and you know that they're not done with their interviews till Friday, you know you should wait till at least Monday to maybe do a possible follow-up, because if you call them on Thursday, they're still not done with their interviews. So you don't kind of open up the oven too early and the cake isn't done yet. You wait till the cake is done, because according to the box, it says it takes 30 minutes. So I'm going to wait 30 minutes or a little more to check it out. So following up. So one of the things we do provide for you in the supportive documents is we provide some thank you letters and some follow-up letters. Now, a thank you letter or a follow-up letter is really a reverse cover letter. In the resume presentation, I talk about how cover letters are made of three sections. The first section is what job you're applying for, how you heard about it, why them. The second section is 3 to 5 sentences about how you are a qualified candidate for the role. And then the last section is what do you expect to happen next? Well, a thank you letter or a follow-up letter is just like that. Is you're referencing the interview, what position you interviewed for, and how you are interested in that company and why you're interested in them. You're reiterating again how you are a fit for the role. And one of the things I really recommend people to do when they do interview is to take notes in an interview. Because if you take notes during the interview, there's going to be certain things that the employer is going to ask you about, whether that's about your resume or your experience or your education, and you can make yourself a little note saying, oh, he really asked me a lot of questions about my previous job. Oh, he liked that or she liked that I knew this particular software. Oh, they reference my education a lot. And you make yourself those little notes, so when you follow up either in the second interview or when you do your follow-up letter, you can re-reference those, because those must have been points that they find important, and so you're reiterating that again. And then finally, the last segment is what do you expect next? Thank you so much. I look forward to hearing from you. Please let me know if there's any additional information I could provide for you, or I'll be following up in 2 days in regards to my current status with you. So once again, you can give us a call at 708-222-3100 if you really want to take advantage of our one-on-one services. You can check us out on Facebook. We're at facebook.com/Circle Workforce. We're constantly doing different workshops like this, and we do host hiring events and virtual events with employers. Just to give you an example, tomorrow we're having an event with Pactive that's looking to hire a variety of positions. What's really nice about the events we do is we want to be able to give individuals the opportunity to actually interview with an employer, so you can have some face-to-face time, because let's be honest, in the end of the day, the face-to-face is what's going to land you the job, because you can tell somebody how great you are. And of course, you want to make sure you go to tinyurl.com/Circle Docs to get a hold of the additional material. And let me bring up for you what that website looks like. So if you were to go to tinyurl.com/Circle Docs, that's going to take you to a Google Drive. So let me bring that up for you. Sorry about that. It looks like with the screens, it's running a little slow on my end, but it should be a second. Now, one of the other things I mentioned too that we do is we do leverage federal grants to be able to help pay for people to go back to school. If that's something you'd like to know a little bit more about, then definitely give us a call, 708-222-3100, or you can email us at frontdeskajc@il.sercohq.com. Our goal is to be able to provide you support and resources to either make you more marketable in the type of work you are looking for, or if you're looking to make a career change, how we might be able to assist you and be able to get your foot in the door in that particular career change. So here you go. So that's loading up for us here. So if you were to go to tinyurl.com, it's going to take you to this Google Share Drive, which we compiled for you, that has a variety of resources. So I know I referenced the negotiation packet here. So let me bring that up for you so you can see what that looks like. And so obviously one of the most important things is making sure you do your labor market research, understanding what companies are willing to pay. And then from there, you do your part by seeing what you can actually afford. Great, companies are willing to pay this much, but is that enough for my bills and obligations? So we have a lot of great resources here for you in regards to interviewing. As I mentioned, we do have a full presentation, which has a lot of great video additional add-ons that I definitely recommend taking a look. Duke from Orland Park Library did include that in the chat, so definitely take a look at that. But we do have some things here. So 38% of people fail to smile in an interview, whether that's over the phone, as I was mentioning, or face-to-face. 67% of people fail to make good eye contact. And it's so important. If you're interviewing with somebody, you want to make sure you're looking them right in the eye and you're smiling. And I said it earlier, when you smile, it makes your voice softer. So you're not yelling at somebody. You want to make sure you're not yelling at the person. I talked about bad posture. A lot of what you say isn't what you say verbally, it's what you say with your body. So sitting up straight, having your shoulders up projects confidence. And so when you say something, someone is more likely to believe what you're saying as true. And so a lot of great resources there. Definitely recommend you taking a look at that with the full-length video to really get the most out of today's presentation. But I am here to answer any questions you have in regards to interviews, whether they're in regards to the presentation I just made, or maybe specific questions you have in regards to an interview you'll be having soon, or an interview you had and you wanted to get some feedback on.
The Orland Park Library does want to thank Hugo and the Southwest Suburban Cook County American Job Center for doing these 3 programs for us, so thank you.
Oh, no, of course, of course.
And we'll give just a minute or two to, oh, let's see. All right, we have a comment from Jackie that says thank you, especially for the handouts with the practical information.
Oh, no, of course, of course. In the end of the day, practice is going to make perfect. And so we try to provide you enough material where you can kind of get a sense of what kind of questions you may be asked in the interview process. And then that allows you the opportunity to kind of come up with your answers. So a nice work exercise that I recommend people to do is to actually write down their answers to possible questions they may be asked. So we provided you in the supportive documents list of common questions. And so what I recommend people to do is identify some of the common questions and then come up with answers to those questions. And the exercise is that you write down your answers. And the reason I ask people to write down their answer or their response to that question is because then they can see everything they wrote down, read it out loud, hear how it sounds in the ear, and then you work on it where it's like, it sounds really winded, and so let me get rid of this, and let me get rid of that, and let me trim this down, and then you come up with a simple, quick statement that now you have that, as they say, that elevator pitch to either introduce yourself, so when you get asked that very common interview question about, tell me about yourself, you have your go-to answer to that.
And so if there are no questions, once again, thank you, Hugo. And I hope everyone has a great day. And thank you for watching and being here.
Oh, I think there's something that just came up.
There is. I had my job for many years. Do you feel interviewers are still focusing on STAR techniques?
So when you say STAR techniques, are you referring to in regards to them talking about technical skills and your accomplishments in those technical skills, or what are you referring to exactly? Jackie, when you say STAR, what do you mean exactly?
Did you see what she responded with?
Oh, I see that now. Yes. Sorry, there's a delay on my end.
Oh,
My
okay.
apologies. No, I find nowadays that more employers are just trying to make that match. And so they're really looking at the individual that's interviewing to make that connection to that employer. So I find most interviews nowadays are occurring because there's a need. The employer looked at the job description, and nowadays most companies are just skimming at job descriptions. They're critically looking over, see if there's just a hint of of suitability for the role, and then from there, when they're asking you, when they're interviewing with you, they're asking you more questions about can you do the job, and so they're looking for responses that are more quantitative in regards to my ability to do the work instead of just more of the way that tasks are being done or responses. Unless the specific type of job you're looking for is a little bit more mid to upper level management, then they may be more concerned with your process and mentality. But in reality, most employers nowadays are just really looking for you to make that connection for them to say, this is how I'm gonna get fit because I understand the job you're looking for and I can do it. And I think a big part of that is just because there are so many individuals that are unemployed, and there's such a big reliance on using job search, job boards like Indeed or ZipRecruiter, and those job boards are actually not very helpful from the employer's perspective, because an employer posts a job on, say, Indeed, and Indeed identifies hundreds of resumes, and it starts filling in the inbox of that employer with all the resumes, and some of them may be of actual applicants that saw the job and say, oh, I'm interested in this job, and they submit an application. But a lot of them are being done through what they call bots or robots or software that's actually making referrals on people's behalf. And so the inbox is being so inundated that they're like, I don't even know if these people are eligible or not eligible. And most individuals that are submitting applications aren't even good fits. And so there's such a big conversation right now in regards to, I need you to tell me how you're a fit for this job. I feel that that's something that's really changed where from before in the whole recruitment process. Yeah, it makes it very difficult to be able to find good candidates. And there are great candidates out there. It's just what it is so many people are being so swamped. And so there was a great article I read maybe about a week ago about, in reality, these systems for these, you set up a profile on Indeed or ZipRecruiter, and then once you set up your profile, they start providing you with job leads and opportunities, and all you have to do is click one button to submit your application. And so employers understand that, and so they're getting overwhelmed. And so the problem is on both sides, is you as a job seeker, you feel some sort of accomplishment because you're going back and you're writing down for unemployment or for yourself which jobs you apply for, and you look and you say, oh, I submitted 15 applications today in the past 15 minutes. And so you feel real great. Oh, I'm getting my resume out there, and I'm going out there. The employers are getting overwhelmed with their inboxes, and so they're not even looking at most of those jobs. And so there's a disconnect that's happening. And so in reality, that's where following up and reaching out with your applications and submissions is so important. So using websites like LinkedIn to be able to connect with some of these employers, or sending out the actual thank you letters or follow-up emails in regards to it can be so beneficial, because most people are still not doing that. And so that can put your name in front of the list of all those other applicants. I can tell you, a lot of my job consists of working with employers, and I've had employers tell me, Hugo, if you can just tell me who you want me to go in and find in this application tracking system that we use, that's just easier, because I get so many applications, I can't even scroll through the M's on a single day. And so me being able to tell the employer, oh, here's somebody who applied for your job, pull out their application. They're like, I'll just do that. If you can just give me names, I'll pull out those names, because it's just so crazy right now with these systems that people are using. Biggest thing I would say is trying to make connections wherever possible. And the end of the day is really, it's always about who you know to really get your foot in the door, especially for more mid to upper level positions. That's so important. There's still going to probably be a application process, which is submitting the application, having a phone screen or interview, walking in for a face-to-face interview, being referred up to some supervisor for a final intake screening interview. But knowing somebody in the process and helping you navigate what that may look like, that's going to be your best bet. So using a website like LinkedIn is really great because it allows you to be able to get a sense of, one, what the company culture may be like, who works there, especially if you're applying for a job. You can go to somebody's LinkedIn, you can go to a company's LinkedIn profile. When you go to their LinkedIn profile, you'll see who works there. When you look at the staff that's associated with that company, and if you're specifically looking for a job that somebody already holds, you can look at their LinkedIn profile and see what they're saying about themselves. And that's kind of like the question where, what do you like about the previous person? And so if that person already works there and their LinkedIn profile says how they went to school for economics, or that their last they have a strong focus in retail, then that kind of gives you some hint. Hey, if I can pitch this angle about myself, that I got my degree in economics, or that I have some strong experience in retail, then that might be able to get my foot in the door. So now when I reach out to the hiring manager, especially on LinkedIn, a lot of times when you apply for a job on LinkedIn, you get to see who posted the job, who the recruiter or the hiring manager is. You can message them and say, hey, I think I just want to let you know I submitted my application. I've attached my resume for consideration, but I feel this is a great job for me because I actually went to school for economics, and this is right along the lines of the type of work I'm interested in, or I have a strong retail background, which I think fits very well. And you can say that with confidence because you saw that an employee of theirs who already works there and is doing the job that you're submitting an application for say these things about themselves. And obviously if that helped them land the job, why wouldn't it help you?
Are you looking at the next
Yeah,
question?
I see the next question.
Oh,
So that is true. Now, the one thing that can really help is the interesting thing about LinkedIn, for example, is that it allows you to connect with your first and second tier connections very easily. And in reality, it's the third tier connections and so on is who you really want to connect to, which is the people you don't know, right? So if I'm applying for a job, the likelihood that I actually happen to know the human resources recruiter at that company I'm applying for, they're probably going to be like a third tier connection. But the more first tier and second tier people that you can connect with, the more likelihood that that third tier person may become a second tier person that you are able to message at least through the free LinkedIn process. And so something that can really help expand your network. And so connecting with coworkers, previous coworkers, and those kind of things is great because it just helps expand your network to be able to connect more easily to somebody by chance. Is something that can help you do that is if you go on your LinkedIn profile and you type in after your name, or you have your name and your introduction in regards to kind of that quick bio on the first segment of the LinkedIn. If you type in Lion, Lion, that lets LinkedIn participants know that you're open to connecting with them, whether you actually know them or not. And so then more people are likely to reach out to you and connect with you because you put Lion as a tag in your LinkedIn profile. And then, of course, you will be accepting these connections because the idea is that you want to expand your network as much as possible, just so you may toss a larger net to possibly grab onto somebody. But in regards to a lot of your previous coworkers maybe looking at the same kind of jobs, that's a strategy in itself where if you have a great relationship with your previous coworkers and they happen to have landed a job at a firm that's doing very similar, because one of the things I tell people when they're doing job search is look at the competition. So if I applied for a company and they make widgets, then I should ask myself, well, who else makes widgets? Because if I am a good fit for them and they make widgets, maybe I'll be a good fit for a role that this other company has because they make the same product or service. And so if a past coworker gets hired at a job, I would reach out to him and say, hey, we had a great working relationship. Maybe we can pick up where we left off at the new firm. Can you make an introduction, connection? And a lot of jobs that companies are hiring for are actually never posted because they're kind of filled internally. And so internal referrals from a human resources standpoint are actually the best because they come with that weight where if you work for me and you're saying, hey, I like to refer somebody that I know that I think is a good fit, that carries a lot of weight instead of me having to go through the process of posting out. And that's kind of the same mentality that I just referenced a little bit ago with some of the employers I talk to that say, Hugh, if you can just give me a name, I'll pull it out and I'll talk to them because I don't want to go through my system and have to try to figure things out. But I can see where, for example, depending on the type of work you were doing, if you think of employment like a pyramid, the bottom base is is larger than the top. So depending where you are in that pyramid, there you may be fighting for the same type of position, not necessarily that they have multiple positions. And so in a scenario like that, that can be a little bit difficult. But I would still tell you, keep the connections of the people you used to work with, keep those active, because they may allow you to lead to a different connection with somebody else that they may have worked with in the past. So you may have worked with them in your last job, but in the job previously, that person worked with somebody else, and that's who you really want to talk to, is that other person. Because you already know David, but I want to talk to Stacy. So definitely connecting with as many people as possible can definitely help you in the LinkedIn process. And don't be afraid to, I know right now it's a little bit difficult. There isn't a lot of face-to-face networking events, but I can tell you there's still networking events that are happening. They're just happening through Zoom. So don't be afraid to try to participate in events. And depending on the type of work you're looking into, there may be association groups or affiliation or memberships that you may be a part of that can really help you connect. So for example, if I was a graphic designer, I would want to connect with other graphic designers just so that I'm in the know in the industry. And if somebody works for a firm and they come up with a job that probably won't get posted, then I can say, hey, shoot it out there. Hey, you guys are graphic designers. Do you guys know of any other any places that are hiring for a graphic designer? Because I'm looking. And so you want to be able to make sure you're throwing that out there. I think sometimes with job searching, people don't rely on the networks that they have for support. They kind of feel like I'm looking for work, and so it's all on me, and I'm going to do this by myself in very isolated activity. And really, the successful people are those people that are open to getting support and assistance in their job search. So one is, I think from a mental standpoint, it just allows you to know that you're not in it by yourself. And then two is it opens you up to take some of the weight off, because you probably already have a lot of burden and weight because of the mere fact that you're looking for work and the bills aren't stopping, and you have obligations, and you feel like everything's kind of one thing after the other. And so it's good to be able to rely on somebody and give you a little bit of a hand, take some of that weight off your back, give you that hand to help you lift up and move you forward. So don't be afraid to rely on people, connect with as many individuals as you can, like on platforms like LinkedIn. Don't be afraid to connect with people on virtually right now because of COVID, networking events, and then reach out to any kind of network affiliations, association groups that may be related to your particular industry. And then depending on what your educational background is, I would say don't forget about your education. Most institutions, universities, colleges, vocational schools, whatever the case may be, they tend to have some sort of career department, and so they have staff on site whose sole job is to try to help their students find employment. And yes, they may have a lot of focus on their existing students. You're a past student, but they still provide that kind of support to a lot of past students as well. So don't be afraid to rely on that as well. Say, hey, I'm not necessarily looking at you to start working with me one-on-one like the way you do to an existing student, because that may be your focus, but I would like to be part of your newsletter. Let me know if you have employers coming in, or next time you're going to hold a job fair, or things like that.
All right, so we'll be wrapping up here, almost 4. We want to thank you. Orland Park Library wants to thank Hugo and the American Job Center, and thank you to everyone who popped in. And I hope everybody has a great rest of the day.
Oh, thank you so much. Take care. Enjoy the day.
Take care.